All right, hi. My name is Piyanka. And thank you for having me here. It's truly my pleasure and delight to be here. Today I'm going to talk about Google Analytics, which I don't know that much about. There are some experts here. But I do know something about how to draw decisions out of data. And so that's going to be the focus a little bit more. Bit more background on me. I have 10 plus years of experience in analytics. And really driven about, what empowers, what really gets me going is not about how cool the data looks and look at the visualization and so on, but what can I drive in the business, bottom line, from these cool tools and the recipes we have. So with that, sorry for the interruption. So this is what we would have liked to call it if I knew what was going to come out of Google Analytics tool once I started playing with it. So 120K incremental revenue, 12% from 2 hours of analysis. Would you like to know how? Sure, okay. So before we get into that, I'm all about statistics, as you can see. Not that much, but how many of you are the work for Google? Okay. We have one. How many of you guys work for a consulting company providing services, Google Analytics, certified partner services? Okay, roughly about 10%. And I would imagine the rest of the 85, 90% are folks who are using analytics within part of the organization, right? Have I missed anything? Any category? Okay. All right. Cool. So that helps me ground me. By the way, how many are small businesses here? Okay, roughly about 10%. All right. So yeah, I think I do have a confession to make. Right, Google Analytics is new for me. I used to play with this 8 years ago when I ran a media company and would look at the tool, but it looks way different now. It's way cooler. So I start playing with this, and I look at this, Caleb was kind to give me access to data, and I was like, wow, look at this. There's dashboard, there is all sorts of site usage data I can see, I can set goals, I can segment. It was mesmerizing. You can do funnel. So I'm used to tools, right? But the tools which I'm used to are more big data, Teradata, Oracle, Omniture, Site Catalyst. Omniture, Site Catalyst are similar, but similar to Google Analytics. But that's what I'm used to. So I start playing with this, and so accessible. This is a really cool tool. So it's very, very exciting. But then what happens? Because it is exciting, I get lost. 2 hours down the line, 3 hours down the line, I'm still playing with the tool. And the case study, which is supposed to somehow pop out, is not popping out yet because I haven't even started to figure out what I want to talk about, right? So and this is generic. This experience of mine is not specific to Google Analytics. There are really cool tools out there these days, and you can kind of get lost and get mesmerized and start playing with it. And without a recipe of how do you do our decisions out of these cool tools, you can really get lost. So that was my own experience. So I said, well, it's coming up in 2 weeks. I better get my act together. So I decided to follow Ehring's 5-step from data to decision framework. So without going into a whole lot of detail, this is a 2 days workshop that we do. But briefly, what I want to emphasize on is to do the due diligence of going through each steps. First, understanding what the real business question is. A lot of us, by the way, there's a white paper at the end of the conference. I'll give you the access to the white paper, so you don't need to write anything. It's there in a lot of detail. So right now, interact with me, ask me questions. It's a keynote, but feel free. I want to make sure you understand what I'm talking about. So business question. It's really important to understand what is it that you're driving towards, because what business question you go with will really direct what you should be collecting, at what insights and what actions you would take out of it. So it's very important to do the first step of business question. What is the real business question that you're asking? And unfortunately, the business question, whether you're on the business side or on the consulting side, or even within the business, if you're on the analytics side, it somehow doesn't pop up by itself. A lot of people have ideas in their head. Your client or you yourself may have ideas in your head, but that's not necessarily the real question. So you follow a framework to arrive to the real business question. Because my saying a hypothesis or a concept like, I wonder where should I put my money? How should I improve my marketing spend? Those are really vague questions. Unless you kind of filter them through and find out what your real business question is, you won't necessarily get the power and the decisions at the end of this process. Then the second step is analysis plan. Have a plan before you get into, starting pull data and get, just like I did, get lost in the data and it's like, wow, this is cool, that is cool. Look what this is telling me. What about that? Have a plan based on what the business question is. Lay out your hypothesis. What is it that fundamentally I or the other side believe about the business? And thereby define your methodologies, and so not going into too much details, but have a plan. And there's some stuff we'll cover there. And then based on the analysis plan, based on what you're going for, then collect data. And the data you collect, you kind of have to be a little bit, especially specifically in the larger data sets, you have to be disciplined about only collecting the data you're trying to answer the question with, because it's very, very easy. I mean, it's a data deluge. It's very easy to get completely lost in this data deluge and drown. So collecting the data as per what you have set up as a plan, and then deriving insights. There are lots of methodology. There are lots of techniques. Choose the right methodology and just follow through the steps. Don't take shortcuts, because I've seen a lot of jeopardy. My experience with Google Analytics is not as much, but being with companies like PayPal and working with large data sets and larger data sets and so on, there's a lot of stuff which goes on if you don't do the steps correctly. And then driving it all the way, just cool insights isn't it? How does that, whatever you have found, tie it back all the way to your business question and thereby drive towards impact through recommendation. So this is what we did for the winery and wedding case, which I'm going to talk about. So here is the Oregon-based wedding and winery and wedding events business. And they use their website for driving traffic. And they have an X amount of ROI from their marketing spend online. And what I understood was what we could set up, what they would like to do is, how do you optimize the ROI better? They're spending $27K this year for $1 million. Can you optimize that incremental ROI? And so the solution we proceeded with was using the 5-step framework, which I just talked about. We identified key sources of good, meaning good leads, and bad leads, which is where is it a better ROI versus worse ROI, and basically double down on the goods which we can, and shunted down the bad traffic. So essentially, no rocket science here, common logic, but the idea was to set it up in the sense that it can get you the results faster. If you bumbled around the data, eventually you will figure out, but unless you have a plan, I am actually going for optimizing my ROI, you know what happens, right? Unless I'm the special case and I only get bumbled around and mesmerized and the rest of the people are cool. So this is what happened. For a $1 million business, we identified 120K incremental revenue potential with just 2 hours of analysis. So once I focused and said, I'm going to use the own framework, it got easy from there on, right? So here is the first step, right? Business question. Here's the context. The website is to inform and generate inquiries, and there's an inquiry form. Basically, you go through the website and say, wow, this is a cool location. Look at the pictures. Well, what all is available. Look at some basic guideline on the pricing, and then you submit the form. If you're further, if you're considering you move it around, we're going to move it on the website, and then at some point you'll come back and say, well, I'm interested a little bit more. You're further down the consideration funnel, and then you're going to submit an inquiry, a form, saying, I'm interested, are these the dates available, and so on. And so this was the context, and 27K of online marketing spend. It is search engine optimization, paid clicks, partner referrals, and so on. And this was the question as I started understanding where are the good leads coming from, how can I get, how much to invest in each of these sources, and should the marketing mix be changed? So these are some of the questions which, some of the inquiry stage that which we came out to. So the real business question, by using the framework which I'm not talking about here, there's a detailed framework. We found the real business question is where to get good leads from, where do good leads come from, and how do you get more of these good leads? Because as you get more of these good ones, you can see your numerator becomes bigger, and your ROI, your ROI gets optimized, and your marketing gets optimized, marketing spend. So then we move to the next step, having a plan, and for the first step in the analysis plan is goals. So business question, sometimes the business question is much bigger. This is a bit of a simplified case, but the business question may be much bigger, but you have to define what of the business question you can actually analyze. Sometimes you may be limited with the amount of data you can get from Google Analytics. You may be limited with the amount of data which is online, and you have to make some connection to the offline world. So defining your analysis goal early on is very useful. And so what we identified was you want to quantify conversion by different sources, and you want to identify opportunities where there could be a shift in the spend. So this is the funnel I was talking about. People come on to the website, and they're going to browse and look at the pictures and so on. These are future blissfully wedded brides to be, right? So they're going to look around and see, how does it look? This location looks good. Does this area work for me? And so on and so forth. And then eventually they'll come to the events page. They'll start looking at the details of get a little bit more idea of the winery venue. And then they may then do something in the same session, or somewhere down a few days later they talk to Calabas, explaining the usual case to me. Somewhere down in their consideration, they may talk to their mom, they may call their fiance and say, hey, does this location work, so on and so forth. As they get further down their consideration funnel, they'll get into submitting the form, right? And once they submit the form, then and some percentage of them will convert to an event. So the Google Analytics world is limited to the online world of awareness and inquiry, and the booking the event happens offline. However, you can do heuristics. What we have understood was what we want to do is track both awareness and inquiry, because they're both important. They're just different parts of the funnel, right? And we also know that a percentage of the awareness and a percentage of the inquiry would convert to an event, and roughly 1% of the awareness, people who look at the website, this is more heuristics, this is more concrete. 10% of the people who submit the form will convert, and they book an event. And booking an event, it's roughly 5K, and one event is 5K. So this kind of setting up your heuristics early in the game helps you to start drawing. When you have cool insights, when you have findings of conversion rate, differential, and so on and so forth, you can start tying it back to the dollar amount. Otherwise, and the important thing to note is the dollar amount is happening outside of the website. However, unless you understand the dynamics, the consideration funnel, your business is a totality. It's just not the Google Analytics part or the trackable by Google Analytics part, right? So setting up that heuristics of how you're going to take the online to offline, and that consideration to do in the analysis plan stage. By the way, is it making sense so far? Thumbs up? Yes? Okay. All right, so there are 5 building blocks for the analysis plan. One of them we just talked about, the analysis goal. So there are hypotheses. How many of you know what hypotheses mean? Okay, most of you know. So basically this is going into the analysis. You want to know what are my beliefs and reasonings that I'm thinking that may be driving to, that is relevant to my business goal, right? If I'm talking about optimizing my ROI, what are my hypotheses? So some of the hypotheses, and it's very important to note, do the hypothesis first, because that is going to drive what data you'll collect. So some of the hypotheses we have is, certain wine guides may be better than wine guide referral may be better than the other. The paid may be better than the Google organic may be better than the or paid is not as good as organic. Mobile users may be more engaged, and if they're visiting a website from their mobile devices, they're likely going to convert at a higher rate. People, if they see the pricing page, they have the information they need, they may not convert. These are good things to capture, because that will define what you're going to get into is the data required part. And so because I have certain wine guides maybe better than the others, I'm talking about traffic sources, right? So you look at data by traffic sources. Because we have mobile, you're going to look at mobile and so on and so forth. Essentially, however way you have laid out, based on your business question, based on your analysis goal, and based on your hypothesis, all these will dictate. So hypothesis is a result of your fundamental beliefs tied to your analysis goals, and then tie that then to data required. You may also have this pricing page, so then you use advanced segmentation to do, people who've seen, people who submit form, those who have seen pricing page versus not. So, you have the ability now to do advanced segmentation. So that's another cool tool. And at this point, you're realizing that you're looking for correlation. You're looking for, correlation is a technique where you're looking for relationship between different sources or different sets of data coming in, or different sets of sources, traffic sources, and then how do they convert. So it's a correlation analysis. You're looking for relationship between conversion and sources, right? And there are lots of other techniques, but this is what is appropriate for this analysis. And so then you start getting into data collection, right? So define your definition period. What are you going to use? Are you going to use 1 month data to make your decisions about the yearly spend? Are you going to use 1 quarter or 1 year? Is the seasonality important in your business, and so on and so forth? So this is a place where you're making all the consideration of how you're going to collect the data. What data are you going to collect? And also you're going to look into shunting the long tail. And you'll see here in our case, and maybe that's true for most of the businesses, it's a long tail, right? Most of your traffic, most of your conversion is going to be concentrated on the top, right? Maybe it's 80%, maybe it's 90% being concentrated in the top 10 links or 10 sources, right? Top 10%. So shunting the long tail so that you don't get lost in this long tail, it's irrelevant actually, because they're very, very small in terms of your entire traffic pie. So, and then you get into data audit. It's a very important step to look at, at that point when you start drawing a conclusion and you start doing some summation and you say, yeah, total number of submit forms multiplied by 10%, and then 5K, this is not totaling my revenue, which I see offline. It's not tying up. So auditing data, making sure what you see online, what your hypothesis is all matching up is very important. And change assumptions at that point, or they may be incorrect data. There may be problems, and now you have tagged it. This is all to be caught here, because further down you get so you see an analysis result and you start believing in it. You'll not do the due diligence at that point, right? So due diligence needs to be done now, and there's a bigger the data set, bigger the challenge of cleaning the data, auditing, and so on and so forth. Again, the data set I played with was a smaller data, so it was just for me, just triangulating and asking Caleb, is this making sense or not? And that basically helped. But in your case, depending on how big your, go ahead.
Sorry, focusing on the shunting one, can you cover that just one more time for me?
Sure. So, and we'll go through when you look at the data, you'll see it again. But essentially, what I saw was, and I see it a lot, is your top X% of traffic. Probably 10 sources or top 10% of the link or referral is going to cover your 90% of the traffic. So if you're interested in how do I make fundamental decision in the business, which will drive fundamental levers of my business, it's not going to come from the long tail, because they're so small in the pie. So shunting it so that you're not distracted. You can either just aggregate it and bucket it, which is what we did, or you can just shunt it. It's irrelevant. That's important to do, because yeah, then otherwise you're looking at this long tail of data. It has no meaning, actually. So, cool, good question. All right, so with that, we get into deriving insight, the fun part, right? So with that, as we've chosen correlation analysis, and what we're going to do is use our correlation technique and go through each of the hypotheses that we have laid out, right? So the first hypothesis was, hey, different traffic sources convert differently. So we'll do univariate. Univariate means one variable distribution, basically. And that's the first step for correlation analysis. And what you see is, you can see, as I was talking about, your top three links are capturing roughly about 70% of the visit. So, and then if you come down, like maybe 15 or so, what I've done here is aggregation. I've said other long tail, which may be however many visits, they're only 7% of the visits, but lots of links. So I've basically aggregated my long tail. And that gives me a sense. You can either look at it in a table format or a pie chart and start getting a sense of, hey, what is my distribution looking like? Look how big the pie of how big Google organic searches. Organic search is basically driving most of my, 36% of my traffic, and so on and so forth. Next is paid on Google, and next is Bing paid, right? So, and the next step is bivariate, right? I looked at the distribution, I understood it, and made sense. A lot of times you use univariate to also QA the data. Is this making sense, or is there any tagging problems, and so on and so forth, right? So then you get to bivariate, and you're looking at traffic sources by conversion by traffic sources, right? So all throughout this presentation, I'll be using darker greens to say good, and then go lighter, and then yellow means it's a bad, and then that way, we'll basically a heat map. We're going to make a decision. So is this looking like yellow to you, or what is it looking like? What?
Like pea soup.
Like pea soup. Okay, so pea soup is bad. Not pea soup is bad, but pea soup color is bad in this case. It was supposed to be yellow, but somehow it's looking like pea soup. So you can start start looking at it. 65% of traffic is driven by top 3. And look how, and we are looking at both the conversion, right? Wedding page and form submission. We're going to look at both conversion, but both the conversions are not the same. So you're wanting to compare, you'll compare basically, you'll drive it towards the impact, and when you drive it towards the impact, it'll be normalized, because higher conversion of wedding page may not mean the same thing as higher conversion of form submit, because it's further down the consideration funnel. Thereby, form submit is more important to you than wedding page. It's actually 10 times, because 1% of wedding page converts versus 10% of form submission. So it's 10 times more important. So start looking at that. But however, at this point, you're basically making surmises of, what are goods, some of these darker greens. Look at saintinnocentwine.com referral, my Portland wedding, wedding wire referral. These are much bigger, and these are pretty bad. Eola Amity Hills referral is pretty bad actually, conversion, and the form submission is looking like even more horrible, and so on, right? So and then look at the Google Click CPC. Very high conversion, average, above average in form submission. Bing CPC, probably it lands on the wedding page, but whoa, form submission. I'm paying for this. The winery is paying for this, the Bing CPC, right? So start looking at this. So at this point, this is good learning. Essentially, you're saying the hypothesis is proved. So at this stage, you're basically going to figure out where are the focus areas, which hypothesis I can prove versus disprove. So you proved hypothesis number 1. Caleb, how am I doing in time? 10 minutes. Okay, I'm going to rush through a little bit, but so you basically do univariates, bivariates. You do the same for mobile devices. You look at it, that actually basically it's not driving much of. It's not. Basically most of the traffic is coming from non-mobile users, and it's higher conversion, so it's irrelevant. You're going to look at the pricing page. Pricing page is detrimental to form submission. You look at funnels, you look at advanced segmentation. You're going to see that most people move through from the pricing page, so they're not finding what they need. They're further down the consideration channel. They're ready to engage with you. They're going to submit the form. And that most of the people who are submitting the form are coming from the green. So 2253, you can see 2,000 odd traffic is coming from the pricing page on the booking form. Only 54 are coming from somewhere else. So you can start using, by structuring in your analysis, you can start using this this method to start proving and disproving hypothesis. So you've disproved this hypothesis. So 2 hypotheses you've disproved, 1 you've proved. you're looking at local Oregon area, better conversion, and you start looking at the univariates, bivariates, just like we did for the others. And you're going to see Oregon, Washington, yeah, they are capturing most of your traffic. And they have different conversion. Texas, for example, has more wedding page, looking at wedding page conversion versus very low form submission. Of course, this is the Oregon winery. They're so far away. Things start making sense at this point. I mean, these off courses which you get sometimes are turned on its head, but there'll be some of these, I hope, with the hypothesis that, yeah, this makes sense. This is all lining up with what I understood. And you may find some things like, hey, look at Corvallis. It's you double click on the cities. Corvallis, for example, interesting, 2x the form submission. This is an interesting place to look at. And that's where basically what you're saying is the average conversion, 64 and 3%, and you're going to index and say what is lower versus what is higher than that, and use the ratio. I haven't shown it in detail, but I mean the math is simple, right? The 6% and this is 3%, so it's 2x. Corvallis is 2x the conversion. So this is some place to look at. However, it's only 3% of the visit. So whether in the end does it tie up or not, we don't know. When we start tying the dollar amount, we will know, right? So hypothesis proof. So what we've done so far is proof to hypothesis, disprove to, right? With me? Yes? Okay. So yeah, okay. But so what? A lot of times I have seen analysis stops right here. A lot of, and I'm not talking about small companies, I mean big companies, PayPals of the world, cool insight, cool something analysis built. It is presented to the exec and higher management and whatever have you in a very pretty deck, and what happens? Nothing happens, because it was not tied to the end goal, to be relevant to the business. And it sits in a pretty deck somewhere, in a pretty desk somewhere, right? So it doesn't get to the real impact. So what we need to do now is proceed to the next step of really quantifying the impact of what we have found so far. So if you again, the pea soup is bad and the darker greens are better and the lighter greens are a little bit less better, so a little bit less. So it's a bit of an eye chart, but I hope, are you guys able to see it at the back end? Yeah? Okay. So what we're looking for is, I mean, we've already understood the form submission, right? So we've looked at darker greens and, these are very good, Google CPC, so on and so forth. And what you start saying is, I'm going to quantify the impact. I have form submission, these are the exact numbers, and percentage and wedding page, and I'm going to start drawing the impact. So what you do is basically, if 10% of the form submission gets converted at 5K, plus your 1% of wedding page converts at 5K, that's the total of these revenues. And you start looking at, wow, look at, of the $1 million, 67% is being driven from Google Organic. And the paid click-through is another 14%, and so on and so forth. So you start looking at these revenue impacts, which is really, and at this point, it's not about now comparing, but what about form submission, but what about you visiting in the web page? You have tied it in the same common language. You can now talk about dollars, and it's one language, right? So this is the ROI, and you can see the ROI is roughly 40 times here. And yeah, basically you're going to start looking at, and the cost, right? So some of the costs you may have directly available, your CPC, your Bing, Google Organic, who are you paying as a, your search engine optimization, you're creating content, is there a cost for the content? Let's say there's a $300 per month that you're paying for 3 articles to be written, and there's a cost for that, $300, let's say. And so over a period of a year, how much is your cost? This is a yearly analysis, annual analysis. And so this is how you're going to start laying out your cost. For these wineries, you pay roughly $500 per year to get your, to have them list a paragraph about you on their web page and start driving traffic. So you know what your costs are. So this is a place where you have cost and you have revenue, and you know the ROI. So look at the first one. It's 188. Google Organic. The question I would ask is, can I write some more article, and would that help drive incremental traffic? I'm not sure right now. So my hypothesis is I'm not sure right now. I may test and learn later, but for now I'm going to leave it as that. Here are some Google CPC, and look at the next one. My Portland wedding, ROI of 130. So, wow, if I could, there's one page in which I list my paragraph. If I double it up or triple it up and I put another $500 towards it, would that work for the My Portland wedding folks, right? Because it's driving impact for me. So 130 ROI. Same for the next line. So you're basically going from the highest ROI and seeing, can I capture it? Can I do something with that? And then going down the ROI chain. So next one here is wedding wine guy referral and wedding wire. You know, you have more of an ROI here. So can I double that up? So essentially you'll keep going down and the other thing is, okay, you're identifying good sources. So the question is, okay, I can put more money in it, but where's the money going to come from? Am I going to put it in incremental dollars, or I'm going to shunt these sources which are not helping me? Bing CPC has an ROI of 3, and I'm spending how much? $4,360. Maybe I won't spend that. So my allocation is I'm going to take out the cost from here, and I'm going to put it in my bigger sources. Where else I'm going to take it out? Facebook referral. I'm spending roughly around $600 in whatever logistics. Maybe I'll not spend that much money. I'll let Facebook people find me. They can talk about it, but I'll not, from my side, will not spend money on that. Same for the apps. Eola Amity Hills, that winery guide is not doing anything for me. I'm going to shunt that, right? So you start taking out dollars from places which are not helping, and you're going to double it up. So basically, what I did was in this allocation, I basically doubled up My Portland Wedding and these 3 winery, My Portland Winery Wedding, and Wedding Wire, doubled it up, and I still had incremental some 4K left, and I put that 4K roughly from Bing CPC to my Google CPC. It has, 4 times the returns, and by just doing that, you can see that your incremental with the same budget, you're going to drive 120K incremental. Go ahead.
How do you calculate cost for organic?
How did I call? I basically said, and this is again, these are the things you will, as an insight to the business, you will have better idea of it. My logic was, let's say I'm writing 3 articles per month to drive traffic. It's a search engine optimization. So you're doing something, you're creating content. And for 3 articles, it's roughly $300, right? And $300 multiplied by 12 is $3,600. So that's the math. But again, the point here is not to how accurate are these costs, right? They may be completely off. I may be completely basically underestimating I've assumed Bing, each Bing keyword cost me $1. It may be $2. I don't know at this point. I mean, I didn't get that information. As an insight of the business, you'll know more, and the better your understanding of your cost and revenue traffic is, the better decisions, tweaking you will do, right? So that's at that point what you're trying to do is basically shifting it from bad sources, shunting it down, good sources. Some of these sources, I mean, this looks too good. ROI of 188. Can I put more money in it? I'm not sure. If you think you can write one incremental article and that drives a little bit more traffic, and Faraz the other day was talking about the branded and unbranded, double click and see what essentially is the business dynamic for you, and make decisions from that perspective. So this is where we have netted out at, which is, this is the incremental I'm going to do. I'm cutting the budget from Bing and ELO, Amity Hills, and Facebook. I'm going to double down on this, and I'm going to move some of that in the Google paid search. But at the end of the day, these is still analysis. You don't know what happens. There may be interplay between different elements. And so what I'll do is, this is a bold step for a business which is $1 million, has a 27K to just shut down Bing CPC. It's a bold step. How do you mitigate that step? By testing and learning. You do an A/B test, a proper control, and you do it incrementally. You change one thing at a time. Do incremental A/B test and say, what happened if I change this? Oh, okay. My analysis is what I understood from my analysis still holds. Oh, actually, my analysis is not holding. My results from there's some other play. And at that point, redo this exercise, and then incrementally keep going down so you can take very, very bold steps. You can take basically bold steps of cutting down. It's a scary thought, right? I don't know, the analysis is telling me Bing CPC doesn't work, but can I completely shut down? You don't necessarily need to. For 1 month, actually just shift it out a little bit. Do an A/B and figure out how that works. And if it works, continue down the path. So it's not a switch on and off on the analysis. It's a test and learn. So you can mitigate your risk and basically use the 5-step because you can get the results faster and you can cut down distractions. So there is the white paper. I'll just take the QA in a second, but there's a white paper on aring.com/whitepaper.html. You can download that paper. It has a little bit more detail. It can basically walks you through the process. We're also doing a raffle for 1 free workshop. This exact process that we talked about, data decision, is covered in 2 days of workshop, which is, the next one is January 26th and 27th, San Francisco. If you would be interested in signing up, please do. If you're interested in the raffle for 1 free workshop, here's the pink hat. So you can put your business card here, and we're also hiring for a VP of Analytics position. So if you know folks, or if any of you are in the crowd, we'd love to hear from you. So with that, questions?